Hey everyone, it's Theric here. And if you don't know who I am, I'm a content creator with Pantheon Plus, and we make content for the upcoming MMORPG Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen by Visionary Realms. So one of the things that I enjoy doing is exploring lore for this game. And if you follow my content, you know that I generally make videos that are scripted and very sort of storytelling-like, and do a lot of research and use quotes and that kind of thing to help people understand a little deeper aspects of the lore for this game. But this video is going to be a little different. This is going to be just me talking a little unscripted, off the cuff. The purpose of this video is two things. Firstly, I want to introduce people to the extent of the lore that exists for Pantheon, because it's not currently available on the website. For a little background, they updated their website, Visionary Realms updated their website a couple months back. A refresh, a revamp, and it's much more cleaner now. It's a much nicer website. There's a lot of information there, but one of the pieces of information, or one of the areas of information I should say, that didn't make it into the new website is the lore. And so the purpose of this video is to try and show people that there is more there, more exists than what is currently accessible on their website. Now, they are talking about doing a website 2.0. The next version of it will have the lore included. Hopefully that does come true fruition, because I think it's really important, hence why I'm making this video. Lore is one of those things that draws people in. For myself personally, when I started looking at Pantheon as a game that I wanted to, follow, the lore is one of the things that drew me in, and it's extensive with this game. It's deep and it's so well written. It's such a disservice to not have it available. And this is not being critical of Visionary Realms. I'm just saying it's a deficit that I think could be drawing a lot of people to the game right now, because we get hooked into these. A lot of times we get hooked into, as a community, focusing on game mechanics, upon technical aspects, upon gameplay. But for a huge part of this community, lore is very important, and all that other stuff doesn't matter in a lot of ways. For me, it's both. I like both, but I do really enjoy the lore, in case you don't know. So I want to introduce people to what exists. The other aspect I want to do with this video is show you how I have preserved the lore for myself, because I still like to make content videos about it, and I need reference material. So I want to show you some of the tools that I use to preserve the lore, and how I read it, how I consume it. I don't like reading the lore off the website, so to speak. I find it very, it doesn't really give me the experience I'm looking for. So what I've always done is copied it and saved it into a PDF so I can read it more naturally, as if it were an actual physical book. And I am a iOS user, so I make my videos in iOS using iMovie, mostly on my iPad. There is some other stuff I have to do with my desktop, but for the lore aspect of things, I do keep all my documents saved on my iPad. So as an iOS user, I was always looking for something that was able to help me organize my PDFs and give them that aesthetic as well of a bookshelf. So what you're seeing on your screen right now is an app for iOS called Sidebooks. It's like, when I found this app, it was one of those things that I was like, I'd been looking for this for so long. And it takes the PDFs, organizes them into what looks like a bookshelf, and that's what I've done with all the lore for Pantheon. So I'm going to go through this and kind of show you, so you have an extent of, first of all, the lore that exists, as well as how I've organized it and how I consume it. And I think this is something that if you're an iOS user, you should really look into. If you're not, find the equivalent on Android or whatever system you use. So as you can see, it's grouped into different categories here. So the first one I'll show you is the races. Now, the race information for Pantheon is actually available on the website. It made it in through the race and classes information they have there. So this information is available. I don't know if it's complete on the website, as it were in the previous website, but you can see that it gives like a bit of a just a bit of a introduction to the race, and then talks about their tale. You may recognize this app from a previous video I did called Pages of Pantheon, where I used it to sort of show the experience of reading a book, because that video was about the texts that are available in the game world as they're presented in the lore. So all I've done here is really taken the information, pasted it, like I said, into a PDF, put some cover artwork on it. So that gives it that sort of book cover look. And then, again, this is just the way that I like to read the information. I find it more natural. And I really find that it's also useful in terms of making videos for me, in terms of researching, because I can quickly search for certain keywords, or I can find a way of, looking for a theme if I'm talking about a certain thing. So again, it's really interesting, really useful. So that's the races. That information is actually on the website. Now here's the rest of it, which most of this isn't. And one of the most important ones is the what I call the Tale of Terminus. And this is basically the main backstory for the game. I'm trying to get to the very beginning. It's quite extensive. Yeah, so as you can see, I just added the Pantheon logo as the front, put a little title on it. Like I said, look at this. Look at how much there is, right? Like, this is a lot of information. And sometimes lore can be overly wordy and less informative, but that's not the case with the lore. And again, I should give a shout out, of course, to their lead writer of Visionary Realms, J.N. Gerhardt, who has penned all this information. And it's amazing. He does not fall into the trap of being overly wordy and less informative. In fact, one of the problems I think people have with reading this lore is that it's dense. You do have to really pay attention to what you're reading, and you do have to, every word matters. And that's one of the things I love about this. So again, look at how extensive. What I'm looking at here is the Keepings of Castigue. This is this tale of Nerian Castigue, a series of letters between Nerian Castigue and Kaelin Greyborn, talking about the Dragon Accord and looking at different things like that. So again, I've just taken an image, like a random, piece of parchment paper image, used it as a cover, added a title, and I'm going through, you can go through it, all three chapters. We have up to chapter 4, because the 4th Keeping of Castigue has been announced, or there is a couple lines from it on the website. There used to be, but it's not, we don't have the full text of it yet. So those are what I consider the main 2 pieces. That's why they're not sort of organized into a different section. The next thing I'll show you is the signature characters. This was something that VR was doing for a while, and it started with Thalen Greyborn, so an elf of Fairthale. This is basically telling the stories of important characters in the world. And these are fairly short, but they're really good, and they add so much to the world by giving personalities and creating these important individuals. This one is Bel Iris. She is an Archai mage, if you will, and her story is really interesting. It's talking about sort of defying the culture of the Archai monks, which is, I guess you might think of as like the primary class of the Archai people, and her becoming something else, something beyond that, a mage of some sort. I've done videos about going into further detail about this, going a lot deeper on these issues, on these subjects, and that's not the purpose of this video. This is just to give you an overview. This is Janice Sova, one of the, I think probably my favorite one. I don't know, hard to say. I like Thalen Greyborn a lot too, but Janice Sova is a dark traitor, and what that means is, anyway, we won't get into it here. It's hard for me not to go deep on these things because my brain wants to, but I just want to give you an overview. And the last one, signature character, this is Arakamel Dawn, an ogre that talks about becoming a Dire Lord, so to speak. And again, really good reads, really good information. Not currently available on the website. Next one I'll show you is I've grouped it into creatures. So these are some of the sort of inhabitants of Terminus that are outside the 9 races. I just did a video on this subject not too long ago. I did part 1. Part 2 should be on the way, but again, we've got the North Tusk orcs. So I've tried to, and again, I'm sort of a OCD when it comes to this stuff. I like to have them look the same, so I've tried to make them all with the similar sort of cover. So taking the concept art, I should give a shout out to the concept art as well. Jared Poulin is the senior concept artist for Visionary Realms, and I believe is the artist who's done most of the artwork for these. And again, just like Jan Gerhardt is an amazing talent who I really think has done a great job of capturing the spirit of the lore through his art. So again, we've got the North Tusk Orcs, we've got the Ratkin, and these are actually surprisingly lengthy if you look at them. They go into quite a bit of detail about the culture, about the things that are important to these creatures, talking about things like, so we've got the lycanthropes as well. This gives a lot of history with regard to their place in the world and their interaction with other inhabitants, the 9 races, as well as other pre-existing or precursor races, I guess you would say. The giants is really one of the longer ones, actually. I believe there's quite a bit of, it's like 6 or 7 pages here of information on the giants. So it's just a lot of cultural information. And then lastly is the banshees as well. And again, extensive. And I really like the way it's laid out into they're separated into very concise pieces so that you sort of can focus on one aspect of them or not. The other section I've created is called Tales. So these are really interesting ones. These are basically just random snippets of information throughout the main lore. Probably my favorite in here is Tales from the Fire. Now, Tales from the Fire is 2 separate stories. There's a part 1 and a part 2. If you like that cover art, that's really old, a really old screenshot from, back in the very earliest days of when they started to show Pantheon off to the public. So don't take that for anything. But I just like the image of the sitting around a campfire as a theme for this one. And it's made up of two stories, like I said, the one between the winds. So there's part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is about Thalen Greyborn and her journey to a different part of the world. And part 2 is really sort of stands on its own. I've pondered the connection between these 2 parts often, and I don't know what it is necessarily. It talks about a character named Savin and his journey, but it's a good tale, and I think it is worthy of the Pantheon lore sort of aspect. So I'm not going to go through each of these as I do with the other ones, but you can see that we've got the Day of Testimonies, Sefer Seolin and Sefer Terminus. These are the elves' foundational texts. Tale of the Twin-Head God, I did a video all about that because I thought it was really interesting too. Got the Confessions of Semina, and some of these are very short too. We don't have a lot of information. Like this is just a short 2-page text. The Kajan account, I talked about that in my most recent video a little bit. The Maiden and the Lad, that's the halflings story. And then the Seed and the Worm actually is probably one of the most important of all these. This is talking about the Spriggan and their connection to the world. There is a ton of information in here that's very important in terms of other races, history of the planet. It goes back, because the Spriggan are so old, it goes back quite far into the history, and gives you an idea of sort of how ancient Terminus actually is. This video has already gotten longer than I hoped it would be, so I'm going to do a little editing hopefully, but I wanted everybody to sort of see this. Again, as a disclaimer, this is all property of Visionary Realms, the texts, the works, and this is simply for my own organizational purposes. But I want people to know that the lore exists, and when you're looking at Pantheon and deciding whether or not this is a game you want to follow or a community you want to join, you should be aware of this kind of stuff. And I really hope VR can update their website to put this information back there, because I think it is really important. Until next time, cheers, and thanks for watching.